Good evening and welcome everybody to the 2 Meter Crew Anti-Net. My name is Nick, call signs K6ARK, and we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I want to take a moment and just thank the owners and supporters of the W6VVR repeater and the Vaca Valley Radio Club, the Freestar Network for the use of their repeaters and digital connections, and a big thanks to Mike WG5EEK and Greg KN6KIE for their continued networking efforts.
Sounded good, man. I'm listening on VVR.
Perfect. And before we get started, just want to take a moment to see if there's any priority traffic. If there is, we'll always clear the frequency. You can say break, break with your call sign. Is there any priority traffic or emergency traffic at this time? All right, I did not hear any. I did hear on the repeater earlier today, or just a few moments ago, that maybe some people were without power in Vacaville. So if that's you, bundle up. Hope everything works out for that. The 2 Meter Crew is not an actual club. We're just a group of ham enthusiasts. We're all just kind of hanging out, enjoying everything ham radio related. There's no dues or fees to be a 2 Meter Crew member. For more information, you can jump on the 2MC Facebook page, join our Discord group, or check out www.2metercrew.net for more information. And there's a link in the description on our YouTube channel at Northwest Ham Shack if you would like to join our Discord. And this is a completely open net for everyone. Anyone's welcome to jump in and say hi. So please feel free and encouraged to join in. We meet every Wednesday at 8 p.m., which is 3 a.m. UTC on the W6VVR repeater. We're also linked through Echolink at W6VVR-R. All-star nodes 51094 and 512342. DMR talk group 3174-117. YSF reflector 50462. And Freestar All-Star links are 2195 and 53377. The previous links that were posted for Freestar, the 53375 node has been retired, and that node now is 53377 for anybody that wanted to link up through Freestar. And before we get into tonight's topic, just want to take a second and see if we've got anybody who's never checked in with us before, or any new operators out there, or maybe someone who's upgraded their license class in the last month or so. If so, if you've never checked in with the 2-meter crew, or you just want to come in and say hi, come on in now. This is KN6DAL calling for any stations.
You're about to call CQ there, Nick.
FRD is here.
W1FRD, Fred. Hey, how's it going tonight?
Just got off work and put it on the repeater, see if you guys are still out here. Forgot what the question was. Nice.
Well, we don't have any questions or any answers just yet, so we're working up to that. But it's awesome to hear you. You sound really good coming through the repeater, and hope you stick around. We've got an awesome topic tonight coming up here in just a few minutes. So thanks for checking in with us, and let's see if we have any other stations.
Kilo 2 X-ray India.
Kilo 2 X-ray India. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening to you two and everybody else out there monitoring. I just turned into the Freestar net here, or over to this area. When you told your buddy there, you said, yeah, we're working up to it, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stick around and listen to this. That was funny, sir. Over to you. Count me in. We'll see how long we last. Over to you, Net Control.
All right. Thanks for checking in with us. Appreciate it. And for those of you listening in through radio connections, we do open up the Zoom chat about halfway through, and anyone can jump in and say hi and join. So thanks for that. And then also I see we've got Digital Analog Ham, Chris, out in the UK. He is up at 4 a.m. getting ready for work watching the stream. So thanks for coming in and joining us. And then we got the Smoking Ape hanging out in the chat on YouTube. Appreciate that. And let's see if we got any other stations. Come on in. All right.
No audio right now on the repeater, W1FRD.
Yeah, I heard it when Jim was talking earlier. It glitched, and it just kind of died out. Hey, thank you for that, Fred. It seems like sometimes it kind of cuts in and out. I don't know what that is. I know it's separate from the popping audio that we hear from time to time, but it looks like it should be coming through now. Maybe just a quick comeback if it is.
Coming back through. Keep hearing this click, click. Maybe that's it coming on and off.
Well, I'm pretty uncoordinated, and they've got me using a foot pedal and my hands to click on everything, and so Maybe I just need to learn how to work the station better. Anyhow, I appreciate the comeback, and I'm glad it's back up and running. Any other stations out there want to check in with us before we get on to our topic? All right, nothing being heard. So tonight we've got a special guest with us here tonight. I don't know if he's even a guest anymore. He's just a good friend, and we got Adam here, K6ARK. Always has a ton of great info, and we're gonna turn it over to him to talk, and we'll just follow along and enjoy. So after Adam has a chance to talk, if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to come on in and ask away, or if you want to wait until our Zoom opens up, you can jump in and we can all kind of have a roundtable conversation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Adam, K6ARK. This is KN6DAL. Take it away, Adam.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. Appreciate you guys having me tonight. It's always fun to be here, joining you guys on the net and the stream. And I want to throw out a quick congrats to the Smokin' Ape for hitting 30,000 subs on his YouTube channel. Fine work with that, Ape. Great channel. Keep up the good work, man. So tonight's talk, well, a little bit about me first. I'm K6ARK. My name's Adam. I've got a YouTube channel, and I've been a ham for about 10 years now. I'm an extra class licensee, mostly focusing on Summits on the Air activity, antenna builds, and projects, including kits and some custom stuff that I like to build myself. And tonight, we are going to dive into a little bit about HT antennas. We've all got them. We've all got lots of them, and how to pick the right ones for your needs. Do you want me to leave a break here and there for the repeater drop?
I'm pretty good. I mean, I can unkey and key back up real quick, so I'm pretty good. Like,
Okay.
if you just take a longer breath every now and again, I'll grab it. So
Sounds good. Cool. So many of us purchase an HT as our first rig, often a Baofeng, and we all know the antennas that come with those things are not the best. So typically we end up, like you saw in my hand, with a pile of HT antennas over the years. It's almost like when you get a few of them and you stick them in a bin, they're like breeding in there and multiplying somehow. So they seem to just grow on their own sometimes. So but in reality, I think there's a reason we end up with a whole bunch of them. They all work a little bit differently. They all have strengths and weaknesses, and we always seem to be looking for the right one that's going to best suit our needs. So that's what we're going to talk about. With any antenna, be it an HT antenna or an HF antenna, there are three kind of key competing factors in antenna designs, and you can't have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. These factors always compete with each other. And those three primary factors are going to be the physical size of the antenna, the bandwidth or multi-band functionality, and the gain, which also includes efficiency. So with any antenna, you're competing between size, bandwidth, and gain. So if you have say a high gain antenna, it's probably not going to be all that small unless it's got a super narrow bandwidth, or a highly efficient antenna that's small in physical size is not going to have much in the way of bandwidth. So you kind of have to balance those competing factors when you're picking an antenna. So to choose between, and gauge those factors for your needs, you got to consider what your priorities are. What bands do you need? What are your ergonomics that you need for your application, or what's your use case? And what kind of performance do you need out of it? So let's take a look at a few antennas that I've got here sitting on the desk. I've got this little guy, which is 440 megahertz single band antenna that I use around the house for getting into my hotspot at home. it's a fantastic antenna for that purpose because it's small, it has good ergonomics, it doesn't get in the way. It's reasonably efficient on 70 centimeters, and it gets the job done for just getting into my hotspot from, say, 100, 200 feet across the yard at home. In other cases, I might bring out the telescopic half-wave 2-meter whip for a SOTA activation. Obviously not as good from an ergonomics perspective. It's even retracted. It's 8 inches long or so and rigid, but it is much more efficient and effectively covers the 2-meter band and will reach out much further. So consider the bands needed, the ergonomics for your use, and the performance that you need out of your antenna. Consider how you're going to be carrying your radio that antenna is attached to. Is it going to be on a belt or in a chest pouch or chest harness, perhaps? If your radio is going to be in a chest harness, you may not want a 19-inch whip antenna poking you in the eyeball as you're hiking up the trail. Instead, you might consider a shorter, smaller whip antenna that's going to stay out of your face, but still give you at least decent performance for your needs there. So we talked a little bit about the trade-offs of antennas and the picking your priority so you can balance those trade-offs. Let's take a look at kind of the different common designs of antennas for HTs. For radio mounted antennas, you have kind of 3 primary designs. Your typical rubber duck antennas, which are a bit thicker in size. With some of these, you probably can't quite see on the camera, but they've got ridges from the helical coil. You've got basically a coil of wire in there that's acting as the radiating element. Those are your usual antennas that you get with radios that you buy from the store off the shelf. The second sort of physical design of antennas you'll commonly see are whip antennas. These tend to be much more slim, much more flexible, often a bit longer. And if they are shortened at all, they typically have a loading coil in the base of the antenna as opposed to that helical coil throughout the antenna. And then the third common physical design of antennas you'll see are those stainless steel telescopic whips. And I've got 3 of them here. In the retracted position, they're decently short. You stretch them out and you get a full size antenna for the band you're interested in. So in addition to those mechanical designs, the rubber ducks, the whips, and the telescopic antennas or telescopic whips, you've got typically 3 basic electrical designs or RF sort of designs: a quarter wave, a half wave, and a 5/8 wave antenna. The quarter wave antenna is probably your most common that you'll find in these different HT antennas. And for a 2-meter band, they're going to be about 19¼ inches long. And quarter wave antennas give you pretty good performance in a decently small size, and they only require sort of a limited ground plane. They do need a ground plane to drive that antenna against, but they can do with a somewhat marginal ground plane. At the longer end of the spectrum, you have your 5/8 wave antennas, and a lot of newer hams gravitate to the 5/8 wave antennas because they have larger gain ratings. 5/8 wave antenna typically has 2 or 3 dB of gain over a quarter wave antenna. And people see that and think, oh, I want more performance out of my HT. I need to get an antenna with higher gain. And that's something you really got to be cautious of. So this is a full size 5/8 wave telescopic whip antenna, 52 or so inches long. But really the drawback with this antenna, and I will say in direct comparisons of the quarter wave whip versus the 5/8 wave whip, I've generally had better performance out of the quarter wave whip, even though it technically has a lower gain figure. And the reason behind that is that a 5/8 wave antenna requires a much more significant ground plane for it to perform well. So when you're operating an HT, the ground plane on the HT is pretty small, right? You know, this chassis is your ground plane. It's 5, 6 inches long, 1.25 inches thick, and 1.5 inches wide. That's not much of a ground plane when you're dealing with a 2-meter wavelength. So you get a little bit of ground plane out of coupling to your body. When you hold that HT, your hand capacitively couples to the HT and becomes part of the ground plane. You can also enhance that ground plane by attaching a 1/4 wavelength wire off of the ground portion of the antenna. They call that a counterpoise or a tiger tail. Pretty common way to kind of enhance your antenna a bit. But even with that, I've found that that compromised ground plane still makes that 5/8 wave antenna not perform quite as well as just a basic 1/4 wave antenna. So the third electrical design that you commonly see in antennas, and you commonly see this design in mobile antennas, which are advertised as no ground plane required antennas, is the half wave. Half wave antennas are fed at a voltage maximum and a current minimum, and they require very little ground plane to perform well. So the half wave telescopic whip antenna ends up being one of my favorite antennas for a portable HT. It's a decent size when retracted, about 36 or 38 inches long when extended. And I found in experimenting and trying a variety of different radio mounted antennas that I really can't beat the performance of a half wave telescopic whip mounted on the radio. So we talked a little bit about ground planes and how to enhance that ground plane. In other cases, you may find that you have the option to use an antenna that's not mounted on the radio. A couple common options that you'll see for those are a roll-up J-pole that you might hang from a tree or off of a pole, or a Yagi, a multi-element directional antenna. Here's an example here. That's a 3-element Yagi that works on both 2 meters and 70 centimeters that I built. I'll post a link to that in the chat here if I can find it. So those antennas really help you optimize your performance and make the most out of your limited power from your HT. So if you have the opportunity, you're going to get better performance out of an antenna that's not mounted on your radio. Getting the antenna as high as possible and on a good ground plane is going to make a big difference if it's a ground plane antenna. I remember seeing a photo in the 2-meter crew Discord recently of an antenna, a mag mount antenna that someone stuck on a cookie sheet outside of their 2nd-story window. And that was a fantastic idea. It's a great, simple way to optimize your radio's performance and get that antenna into a position where it's going to perform well. So again, you know, we talked a little bit about, let's see, we talked about Yagis. One more antenna that I want to encourage you to research and consider trying to build. And this is an antenna, a wire antenna that rolls up to about this size, 8 feet of wire plus whatever coax you attach to it, plus about 8.5 inches of twin lead. And it's an antenna called an extended double ZEP. The extended double ZEP can be set up very similar to a roll-up J-pole and gives you about 3 dB of gain over a J-pole. So it performs even better than a J-pole. It's a bit bigger of an antenna, but it's a simple wire antenna that you can hang from a pole to really enhance your HT's performance if you're operating in a fixed location where you have a way to hang up a wire antenna somewhere. A final note going back to HT mounted antennas is that many radio manufacturers actually design the antenna to function well with the radio for radios that they sell with antennas. So on this example, this is a Yaesu VX3R. This little tiny 4-inch rubber duck antenna that came with this radio performs incredibly well on this tiny little radio. I've made 90+ mile contacts with 1.5 watts out of this thing with this antenna, and obviously from a mountaintop with good line of sight, but this antenna actually performs really well, and I believe it's because this antenna was designed to function with this smaller radio chassis, and it was designed to be tuned and function on this radio. So don't automatically assume that the antenna that comes with your radio is junk. Test it out, compare it to others, and figure out whether or not that stock antenna is actually good or not. Just because it's a 4-inch or 6-inch rubber duck doesn't mean it's not a useful antenna. So I mentioned one of my favorites, that telescopic half-wave antenna, telescopic whip. Another of my favorites is this tiny skinny whip antenna, Diamond SRH 519. It's a dual bander, about 8 inches, about 8.5 inches long, and it's relatively unobtrusive and gives decent performance. Not the same kind of performance you get out of a SRH 77CA, the longer antenna, or perhaps the telescopic whip, but the ergonomics of it fit my needs. So I'm curious, maybe we'll ask some of you guys on the Zoom here first, what are some of your favorite or preferred HT antennas and why?
Hey, Adam, this is Jim. Recently, I got a Nagoya NA771 for a new handheld that I have. And so far, I really like it in comparison to what it came with. Yeah, there you go. Similar to that. And so I also have a question. That's probably, I have another one around here. I can't remember what model it is. And it's on a different radio, and I can't find it right now. So I won't bother with that. But back to when you were talking about the different aspects of the antennas, particularly for the folks who maybe are still running their stock antenna that came with their handheld, but they feel like they maybe want to try something. You gave them a bunch of great options and good ideas, but you were talking about efficiency of the antenna. And I know performance is more of somewhat of a subjective thing. There's not like a scale necessarily to measure performance of an antenna as easily, and then gain, that's easily, measured, and you can calculate that pretty much. But when you talk about efficiency, can you explain that a little bit more for folks that may not understand, antennas very much? Because a lot of, think about the technician's test. There's not a pile of questions about antennas like there is when you get to the general and then you get to the extra. Those two tests, are very antenna heavy kind of question banks. So maybe that would help people understand a little bit, particularly for the technician class folks.
Sure. So generally speaking, I'll mention a few things. Number one, don't trust the gain figures that you see reported by antenna manufacturers for particularly for HT antennas. What you often see in gain figures is just a raw dB number. They'll say typically 3 dB of gain. Decibels are relative, right? So it has to be measured against a standard or a kind of a base point. So when I explain the gain provided by this 3-element Yagi, I explain it as 5.2 dBd, decibels above a dipole. So there's a basic comparison there. And I see a question in the chat asking from the Smoke and Ape, asking to explain dBi, decibels isotropic versus decibels versus a dipole. To kind of sum that up, a dipole has about 2.15 dB of gain over an isotropic radiator. And an isotropic radiator is just a single point in space that radiates in all directions. It's an antenna that doesn't exist, but if you were able to create an isotropic radiator, it would just radiate all directions equally. A dipole, as you know, radiates more broadside to the antenna in sort of a donut-shaped radiation pattern, and has nulls off the end. So you get some gain in the directions broadside, and that's what gives you that 2.15 dBi, decibels over an isotropic radiator. So I typically like to measure things against a dipole, because a dipole is an antenna that we're familiar with and can create. And let's see, your question was about efficiency. So to try to kind of sum it up simply, efficiency, efficiency basically means how much of the power going into the antenna ends up actually being radiated as RF energy. So power in versus power out. And in a true gain figure for an antenna, the gain actually also considers the efficiency of the antenna. And where do you lose efficiency? Well, you can lose efficiency to ground losses. You can lose efficiency to reflected power if you don't have a good match of impedance. So you have some SWR, and you can lose efficiency in matching units or transformers. So if you have, say, a 5/8 wave antenna that requires some kind of a matching network, you may have some degree of loss that's induced there. Generally speaking, a lot of antennas are pretty efficient so long as they're a full quarter wavelength in physical size, if it's a quarter wavelength antenna. Where you start sacrificing efficiency and bandwidth is when you start compressing things in size and using inductive loading to really bring down the size of the antenna.
Cool. Thank you. That's a really good explanation.
That's a good
Sometimes
question.
we forget about that stuff. We just like, oh, I'm just going to get an antenna. I'm going to stick it on there. And, you know, it might work, it might not. If you're not really, you kind of want to be semi-scientific about it and do some real analysis, some real comparisons. And so I'll do that, you know, and try and figure out, is this thing really better or not? I took this one up into the foothills the last couple of days up around Sutter Creek, and it was definitely a lot better than the other one. And I swapped them out in and out, back and forth. So you could definitely, you know, if nothing else, you can do that. Take your stock one, try it on a few places, get some radio checks, swap it out, you know, do the same thing, see if you can get somebody to work with you for a few minutes. It doesn't take long.
No, it doesn't. And you know, I want to caution people to not get too suckered in just by the gain numbers that are put out by manufacturers. If you can, try to figure out that electronic construction of the antenna and figure out if it's a quarter wave or a 5/8 wave or a half wave. And that's going to help you understand how that's going to perform on a handheld and what kind of things you might need to do to optimize or improve the performance, like adding a counterpoise, or perhaps not in the case of a half wave antenna. And you know, I see a lot of people now with the Abri style antennas, the basically spring steel coated in rubber that fold over. I have never, full disclosure, I've never used one of those. I've never purchased one, never used one. There you go. Justin's got one. And they, from what I understand, and not surprising, you know, they're full size antennas, right? Some of them are probably half wave models. Some may be 5/8 wave models. I'm not 100% sure electrically on those, what their design is, but they're large antennas. And if you go back to those competing factors, size, bandwidth, and efficiency, something that's a larger size is generally going to be more efficient. It's going to have a little bit better gain. The trade-off there, of course, is your ergonomics, right? Yeah, you can fold the thing over, but even folded over, it's a big, heavy antenna. And if you're crawling through the brush, that may not be an optimal solution for your use case. So Justin, tell us about your experience with that. How do you like that thing?
So I have exactly the experience that you were just mentioning there. KM6ZDH for ID, since we are in a repeater. But I don't like it at all because of its form factor, and not from a performance standpoint, just from I like to wear my HT. And like you said, you get this giant thing and you're like, where are you poking me? What's going on, right? Like, I think there's another point to that, right? Like your form factor. On my Anytone, I've got the Nagoya 771, but because it's got that flexibility, I like that. But I like to run everything on BNC because I want that modularity, and the Nagoya doesn't come in BNC, right? So you start running back and forth into these different things about form factor. I've got the signal stick on another radio, and I love. Oh, somebody's going shopping tonight. But that's the point. Like, you got to find the right bits and pieces, because it is all of those things that make your antennas work, right? The signal stick, love its flexibility, love all that stuff. At the same time, like you mentioned, chest wear, hate it. If you're wearing a chest harness, that thing is like in your face and you're like, get out of here, and it doesn't want to move. It's great for many other reasons, but you've got to find that right rhyme and reason why you choose an antenna. And I have an idea around your 5/8 wave too. I think the issue with tiger tails specifically is it's about distance above ground. And so when we throw a counterpoise on, and you think about that, when you're holding in your HT up here, depending upon where you're at, but then you have a tiger tail that comes down, now your counterpoise is how far from ground. So I think we start to lose those efficiencies in where that is, and how much of it becomes that you become part of that counterpoise, because that tiger tail is draped across your hand, and all those other things, because our bodies become part of what an HT's antenna pattern is real fast.
Yeah, and so what I found in kind of experimenting with those 5/8 wave antennas, so generally speaking with ground planes, if you're close to the ground and you're capacitively coupling to the ground with your ground radials, it's far less critical what their length is and how resonant they are on the desired frequency. As you elevate radials, and you see this a lot, you really notice it with HF, as you elevate radials, they have to be resonant. And what I found with the 5/8 wave antenna is that if I actually add 3 or 4 counterpoises and spread them off in opposite directions and give it a better ground plane, it performs better. So, but that's not realistic with an HT. You just can't effectively do that.
I'm curious, Nick, KN6DAL here. I'm curious. I don't own one, but I've seen a few people that have those signal sticks, the really long, skinny. I want to say they run around $20 online or something. Is there anybody in the group here that owns one? Justin, take it away, Justin. Let's see, and let's see if anybody else has something like that, because I've always been curious about their performance. Go ahead.
So it's my favorite antenna, except for its form factor. I think it does great. I love the fact that it supports ham study, because that's another great way to do things. But it's form factor. So carry in my backpack, love it. Use out in the field, love it. Works great. The moment I'm working at an event or doing something with the chest harness, or if I'm trying to do side carry or in a spot where it's just big, obtrusive, and it doesn't fold over enough. So, and some people do like to do that. Hey, look, I've wrapped it around into a circle, and I'm like that. So, what's the point of having an antenna in a circle? You can't transmit on that, because what's going to happen when you do that? There's a whole bunch of things there that I kind of go. I get that it gets it out of the way, but I feel like you're losing some form there too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take just a.
So there.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's all good.
I'll let you finish what you were gonna say to Justin, and then we can take just a quick stop and see if anybody wants to check in and has any questions. But go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Yeah. This is K6ARK. The signal stick is a quarter wavelength antenna. It's a quarter wave lip on 2 meters, so it's 19 and a quarter or so inches long, and that is that's a decent sized antenna. So one of the things I was going to note and suggest is actually a really small antenna that has okay performance for its size. I don't happen to have it here in front of me, but it's a little smaller than this guy. This is a monobander, but I'll post a link in the chat here. It's a 2.5-inch dual band, 2 meter 70 centimeter, and these things are super flexible. So if you bump it into your side, you hardly feel it, and they are perfect for home hotspot use for DMR rigs. And beyond that, if you just need an antenna that is small and stays out of the way, they actually perform okay on both 2 meters and 70 centimeters. So kind of a cool little antenna that's well worth the, I don't know, few bucks they cost.
We'll take just a quick break on the repeater here, see if anybody out there wants to check in and say hi or has any questions for Adam or anybody else in the group. Any check-ins or anybody have any questions? Come on in now.
Hey Adam, is that the Ultra Whip? The super skinny, like Nagoya one?
No, it's
Oh.
it's a. Was there somebody on the repeater? Go
I didn't
ahead.
hear.
Okay.
Garbly digital mouse, I think.
Fair enough. No, let's see. I'll put the link in the Zoom chat as well if you want to pull it
I
up.
heard that.
There was somebody. Yeah. All right, I heard a station. It was real low audio. Try coming in again.
W7STV.
All right, I think I
FTV.
got Whiskey 7 Sierra Tango Victor, and your audio level is extremely low, but you are full readable. How's it going tonight?
Going very good. I'm sorry about the audio. I don't know what to change on it. This is like my second time on Echolink.
Yeah, that's totally fine. You're welcome. We're gonna be posting a Zoom link here. I don't know if you're watching the YouTube or not, but you're welcome to come in and we can maybe look and see if there's anything we can help you with that. But you sound good, and nice job getting on a digital connection. Did you have any questions or just jumping in to say hi?
No, I'm just listening and learning. I appreciate this.
Yeah, awesome. We absolutely appreciate having you out here. And feel free to check in anytime. We're here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, and we run till we're out of steam. So definitely appreciate you checking in. Whiskey 7 Sierra Tango Victor. Did I get that call sign correct?
Yes, that was correct. Whiskey 7 Sierra Tango Victor.
All right, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good night and enjoy the rest. Adam, I had a question for you about soda antennas. So, how often would you say that you activate a soda peak with just an HT antenna versus actually utilizing something different?
Yeah, good question. So I love running HF, particularly CW on summits. So I almost always have the HF rig. But that said, I almost always also have a 2-meter rig, and I bring either the antenna that I linked in the chat there. Let's see. Let me see if I can share screen here. Oh, no, disabled.
No,
anyway, it's the MFJ 1714. It's called the MFJ Long Ranger. And, you know, I mentioned I really love half-wave antennas. It really outperforms any on-radio antenna that I've ever used. It outperforms 5/8 wave, full-size 5/8 wave antennas, the quarter wave, you name it. 40 inches extended. It comes in, I think, maybe only an SMA model, but there may be a BNC model as well. But it's $20, and those things are awesome. There's a San Diego company called Smiley Antenna that makes a very similar product with various options for mounting attachments, including BNC. And with that, in Southern California, it's rare that I can't get the minimum 4 contacts just on 2 meters. Over the past weekend, I hiked up Mount San Gorgonio, the highest peak in Southern California, about 11,500 feet. And I brought an HT and the 3-element Yagi here, which gives me a little over 5 dBd of gain. And with that, I actually haven't gone back through my audio recording and filled in the log, but I had a pile up on 2-meter simplex for about almost 40 minutes. It was at the point where I would stop and say, is anyone interested in making a call or using the frequency? Just give me your call sign and I'll hand the frequency over to you to make a call. But I would estimate 40 plus contacts on 2-meter simplex in about 40 minutes. It was pretty wild. And that's excessive. You know, that's a that's a high peak with an amazing view shed of a lot of people in the LA basin and out into the desert. But generally speaking, for SOTA summits, I can easily get at least 4 contacts with just an HT and a decent antenna mounted on the radio.
All right, we have a question in the chat, which is, what is the best radio setup for beginners just getting into radio with a budget of $1,500? I'll take that one for a second, then I'll maybe let you chime in on what you think, Adam. $1,500 is a pretty significant spending budget on a radio setup, especially for a beginner. There's a lot of people that enter into the hobby with much less in terms of a budget. However, with $1,500, you could actually get a couple of different setups. You could get a top of the line HT and a very, very good performing HF rig for $1,500, and it just kind of all depends on what your needs are. Like, what are you planning to do with it? Are you going to be doing SOTA activations? That's going to be a huge consideration. Are you going to be operating only from your home? There's just so many ways to answer that. So it's really hard to say with a budget that large. It's actually kind of easier to answer a question of what do I do with $200 than it is what do I do with $1,500. But I'll turn that one over to Adam, see what he thinks.
Yeah, I honestly, I would need a little more information to give a solid recommendation. For if it's for SOTA or portable. And my next question would be, are you a CW operator? And for a beginner, the answer is probably no. Okay, he says he's operating from home, no experience in radio. So let's assume we're talking technician class here first, and kind of go through that assessment. I think what I would recommend for a technician would be to focus on obviously the VHF and UHF bands, and I would get a good mobile type rig and a power supply and a decent omnidirectional antenna. So so a good starting point would be something like an ICOM IC2730A, which I think is probably one of the best mobiles for vehicle use. I would also recommend considering perhaps a radio that has some digital modes in it, whether it's a Yaesu, an ICOM with D-Star, or perhaps a DMR rig, like an Anytone mobile. Those would potentially be good options as well. The other pieces of the system, you're obviously going to need some kind of power supply. Pretty simple to get a basic switching power supply that'll support a mobile rig like that. And then feed line, your coax is really important for VHF and UHF. You know, spend a little bit of money on some high quality feed line like LMR 400 or similar. And then a decent antenna. And your antenna is going to depend somewhat on what you're able to put up at your house if this is intended to be a rig for at home. I've got a Diamond X300 here at home. It's about a 10-foot tall antenna, so it's not small, but I've got some land and some space and neighbors that don't care, so it's easy to put up something like that, and it gives me excellent performance. Antenna like that only runs you about 130, 150 bucks, so it's pretty reasonably priced. And then, you know, some mounting hardware as well. So for starters, that's I think a mobile VHF UHF rig, perhaps with a DMR function, would be a good place to start for a technician to get your feet wet and have some fun. Any other thoughts from folks in the Zoom?
Well, Greg K6ARK just showed up, so can you just start your entire presentation over again for him so that
Okay, sounds good. We'll do.
Hey Greg, how you doing tonight?
Hey everybody. KN6KIE Greg here. I agree with everything Adam is saying here. Good to see you again, Adam. It's been a while too, man. Thanks for showing up to our little club here. Justin, Kellen, haven't seen anybody in a while. I think the only thing I would add to that would be I love digi modes myself. And like you said, like a D-Star radio or a YSF or a DMR and a little Pi Star. A little Pi Star could go wonders in regards to really reaching out there on top of UHF, VHF. Another little facet of ham radio that I've always enjoyed. You can go all-star, but it starts to get a little more complicated there. But I definitely would recommend a little Pi Star. Start playing with some digi modes and really reaching out pretty far in that manner. So again, KN6KIE, Greg here. Good to see you all again.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I'm gonna see if anybody else is out there. See if we got any check-ins, and we're approaching the 9 o'clock hour, so we'll open up Zoom here in just a moment. But let's take any last calls. Anybody that wants to jump in through any digital mode or the repeater and say hi, or if there's any questions out there, come on in now.
Hey Nick, I got something when there from people talking.
All right, Connor, take it away.
Oh, all right. Hey everybody, this is Connor, K7CBL. So kind of the spur off of what Greg just said. Yeah, a Pi Star is a great little, if you want to call it a tool. I mean, I think it's a tool. But another big thing that Nick can definitely say, like, because Nick, you were there the entire time I set mine up, is just buying it's a little bit more of a pricey route, but buy the Raspberry Pi and buy a cheap $20 DVM hat to go on the Pi, because even if you find it useless for your needs, later on you have a Raspberry Pi and they are helpful for either in radio for all-star nodes, or you know, if you want to run your own YSF reflector, whatever you want to do, it's helpful because you'll have like a Raspberry Pi 3. That's what I use. And all you have to do is pop the little hat that sits on the pins off, and you have a fully functional Pi. And it's just an extra step of buying the thing separate and building it yourself. And it actually might be a little bit cheaper depending on what type of hotspot you look at buying, because you can look at buying a jumbo spot, if I'm not mistaken. That's a Raspberry Pi Zero or whatever they call them now. And that might be like a $70, $80, $90 thing, when you can get a Pi for like 35 bucks on Amazon and the hat for like 20 on eBay. And then all you need is a micro SD card and a way to flash it. And it gives you a little bit more versatility, because I personally like being able to take something apart and put it away to use it later, rather than it only have one use and only can be used for, in this case, just a hotspot. Anyways, that's all I kind of had to say. So people, if you're looking into it, I'd recommend going the route of building it yourself, because people either have Pis laying around, or they'll have one once they're done with their hotspot if they choose not to continue to keep it up. Anyways, back to you, Nick. K7CBL.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. That's actually really good advice, and it's advice that seems to get me in trouble, because that's why I have a million of everything piled in every corner of my garage that's ham radio related, because every time I go to get one, I go, well, I could just go and build it, and I would have enough to make 2 or 3, and so then I end up with spare parts everywhere, and the list just keeps going on. But yeah, I did want to point out, we got Kellen here in the chat, and this guy, the whole time, I mean, he's in the middle of a live stream ham radio night, and he is just going to town on the radio in the background. I mean, what's going on over there? You got ham and harder like nailed down tonight.
I'm all over it, man. A guy came over on 220. I just had to hit him up and let him know we're on the air. Come on to the YouTubes. And he was looking for a bozo net. I had no idea what that was, so he gave me a little information. I guess it was a guy that was a clown. That was a ham radio operator and started bozo net. So little misnomer to me. I guess he's all the way from Fresno trying to transmit way up here. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
But trying to spread the word, let people know that anti-net is still around and live and strong.
Yeah.
Kellen's on digital.
No.
That's what he's
we're
doing.
All analog, baby. Here, you know what you do with pies? You leave them in the box. You don't even unwrap them. You just leave them here.
That way you have them. I've
So
got
I
them
have
just
it.
scattered around my whole desk. Like, if you could see, I'm looking at 4 different Raspberry Pis just scattered on my desk right now. Who knows?
Yeah.
See,
I got a
same
pie that I
thing.
won't be able to program when the internet crashes, but I got one.
I got another one on my workbench behind me. Luckily, the little logo there hides the mess, You can see one HT sitting back there, and that's about it.
I think we can throw one other option at this, though, right? We keep talking about on the cheap, right? But the man has a $1,500 budget. I think it's time to blow that budget, because this is just starting.
Yeah.
So
Gold
let's
is the
start
best
with the
conductor.
9700, right? ICOM IC 9700. That is $1,500. Now you go buy your antenna. Now you go buy your feed line, and now you are addicted, right? Let's be pushing out 100 watts on at
gotta have that
least
tower.
2 meters.
Mo power, mo better.
Right?
Mo power, mo better.
Let's just ham harder right off the bat. I mean,
That's exactly
let's
right.
just go for it.
How much does a tower cost again? Isn't it like...
You should
I
get
don't
most
remember.
towers for free right now.
Oh yeah.
What about those
got
those sharks? Those little mobile those little mobile Pi stars.
Open spot?
Open spot. Yeah, those things.
The
You got the
$300 ones?
budget, man. Those things are pretty hot. I don't have the budget for it. I just have 4 Pi stars all running every digital mode.
Hey,
I
man,
use
it works. It works.
So
Well-
how do those exactly work? Is it like an internet connection you're using off your phone that you're using your radio to talk to?
And you manage it.
Yes.
It's kind of like an app that you
Yeah.
manage on your phone. It'll cross mode. It'll do practically any digital mode
Right.
out there, I
So
think.
you're saying I need a cell phone to talk on the radio so that thing can talk over the internet.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
Yes, that's
So-
right. You're adding RF to the internet just for the
Wow.
sake of doing so. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because you can. Just because you can, and you got the wad in your pocket, dude.
All right. Well, we're nobody's keying up with a call sign right now, so I'm gonna make a quick break, real quick, and just see if there's anybody else out on the repeaters that want to jump in. And I did just open up the Zoom chat. I posted a link in the YouTube description. If anybody wants to jump in and say hi, we'll be chatting here for a little bit. And I see Brian K6ARK is in the chat. Welcome, Brian. Anybody else out there on any of the digital modes that wants to come in and say hi before we shut her down? Come on in now.
Yeah, right.
That's good.
All right. I just got the end of your transmission. You want to try again? Did anybody get that?
No.
All right. Well, nothing being heard. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. We'll have the Zoom chat open here if anybody wants to jump in and say hi, and we'll be just talking it up for a little bit before we shut her down. So thanks everybody. We will return the repeaters and digital connections back to their normal operation. 7-3.
Hey, go get the pie. The pie at the mobile, the thing.
Oh, the battery backed up one. Yeah.
Indeed.
We want real radio.
Wait a
Well,
sec,
hold on,
wait a sec,
hold on.
wait a sec, wait a
You
sec.
only have one of these? I thought you just told us you made like 4 of everything.
Oh, I do. I'm building them. So I'm actually I can share a screen. Okay. So the fair warning here. Let me disconnect Freestar first because I screwed up last 2 weeks ago and I didn't disconnect it, and then I went to work and my DMR looped, and so poor Oscar. He's trying to. I don't know if it was him running the net or getting ready to run the net, but he calls me and I'm at work and I didn't answer the call. I didn't see it until about 15 minutes later, and he texts me, or he call texts me on Facebook Messenger and says, "Nick, your node is going nuts right now on the entire Freestar system, and it's keying up saying blocked every time anybody tries to key up." And so all the people that coordinate with Freestar who work on those digital connections were all out of town at the time, and so he didn't have the keys to get in the shop to fix it, type of thing, right? And he's like, it's been going on for 20 minutes and people are like disconnecting left and right because they're sick of hearing it. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. And he's like, don't worry about it, it's all good. So I mean, I wish I would have known because I could have remoted in and just disconnected it right away, but we got it sorted out. So I have to remember to disconnect all these connections.
Hey, Nick.
Callan's already saying analog, baby, right there.
I already did that. I did that on the Win system down in LA. They booted me twice now already. I've had to go smooch a little booty to get, to get access over there again.
Yeah.
Nick, did you end up using the files I sent you for the case, or did you make your own? I can't remember.
I made my own. I still haven't seen the files that you made. I was gonna pull up.
I was like, I could have sworn I sent you. Via Discord or something.
If you have them, send them to me again because I want to look at them, because I've realized how terrible I am at AutoCAD. It's a challenging thing for me, and I'm just trying to redesign this box through Fusion 360, and I'm pulling it up. And as soon as I have it up, I'll share my screen with you.
What you got to do is like what I was doing. You gave me the measurements, and then I took that pie case, the one that you told me about, like the one that's actually for the hotspot.
Yeah.
And then I just gave a bump off to the side of the thing.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I did at first, but what I'm finding out is it's almost easier to just redesign it. And so this is the concept that I have so far. See if I can.
That was definitely difficult for me to figure out how to measure it and make the bump off.
You guys can see that. Oh, I need to.
Yep.
Nobody on YouTube can see it. Sorry, YouTube. So actually, let me.
Wow, Nick, that looks really good. Did you make that?
Yeah. So I've made this from scratch so far.
I'm assuming YouTube education to make that, because you actually like beveled the corners and everything, even for a prototype. I'm quite surprised, actually.
All right, so this is the concept that I have so far. I haven't cut all the holes in it and everything yet, but basically the design is that it's just lipped over right now, and I need to find a way, and then it's inset right here, and I need to find a way to like either snap latch that because I don't have
C channel, and then at the end, so how I did the design, I'll send it to you. I added C channel to it, and then at the back side so it's sliding long ways, and then on each end I put like a little tab, but I never really figured out a mechanical way to keep it like locked shut. Because your idea was to
Right.
put it in the pocket and walk around.
Yeah.
I had no clue what to do. But no, that looks pretty solid, and that you wanted that extra little space up there in the front, right?
I need that extra little space because coming off of the Raspberry Pi and then the MMDVM hat is the antenna, which needs somewhere to be, and it's just a little tiny. I mean, so
Yeah.
this is the antenna. I actually have one right here in my desk that I can show you if you guys can see that, but it's that's the antenna. And
It's
then
a coil,
it's just got
yeah.
it's just a little coiled antenna. It's just got a plastic cover that goes over the top of it. So this you can just put inside of the box.
Yeah.
So what that does is it takes basically for those watching on YouTube that are like, what's this simple box? Basically one side of it holds a Raspberry Pi Zero and an MMDVM hat, which creates a Pi Star essentially. And then this side is designed for a specific single 18650 battery backup that has an uninterruptible connection. So when you plug it in or unplug it, it doesn't trip power to the Raspberry Pi. So you can keep it powered up indefinitely. And then in one enclosure, you can walk around with this in your pocket and a cell phone or a Wi-Fi hotspot of some sort, and use any digital connection, whether it be YSF or DMR, P25, that kind of thing. And so just fun stuff to play around with, but pretty rudimentary design as far as I'm maybe a week into learning how to operate the program even, so it's taken me a little bit of time. And people that know CAD are probably looking at this tree at the bottom going, oh geez.
Hey Nick,
Yeah.
hey Nick, what about like a slide, like like a 1911 holds to, like the slide holds to the frame or something like that, so it the couple little grooves on it so that it kind of bumps closed and stays closed.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a way to
Yeah, like
keep
if it
that
slid
top on.
this way, if it just like slid in, that would be super cool because
Yeah,
that
like
would
it just
make it
kinda
easy to
slid
swap out the
over it.
battery.
Yeah, you could like slide it off, and then if you put little lips on the very end of it, so that when it starts to snug up as it closes entirely,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't really need any clips.
Like a
or anything.
remote almost, like a remote control
Yeah,
clip.
Just
exactly.
use zip ties or tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or some tape.
Well,
Glue.
Okay,
you
What
know,
about glue?
old school.
Glue.
You know, I was thinking about duct tape,
Some
completely
JB
off
Weld
topic,
on it,
but
dude.
Yeah.
So it'll
Fill it
never-
full of
How
epoxy.
Foxy, yeah.
yeah, how often do you see an advertisement anywhere for duct tape? It's like the perfect business model. It
It doesn't need
advertises
advertising.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost held up my tower on field day.
You know, I was curious, Adam. I was looking at that MFJ antenna that you had posted a link, and I saved that link. And so it's a half-wave, 2-meter telescopic antenna, and
Yep.
you're swearing by its performance to some degree. Would you rate that as good or close in terms of like a roll-up J pole at, say, 10 feet strung over a branch or whatever you could find on a summit?
So electrically, it's the same as a roll-up J-pole.
Okay.
A roll-up J-pole is an end-fed half-wave. It just has a open wire feed line matching network to it. So yeah, if you held that up at the same height as a roll-up J-pole, it should perform equivalently.
Okay.
Those are zero gain, aren't they?
It radiates the same as a dipole. So yeah.
Hmm.
But efficiency is good because it's a full size antenna, so it radiates everything you put into it pretty much.
Well, but that's where we get back to the point is the roll-up J-pole, because now you're on a remote piece of BNC or something, right? You might have better efficiency if you've gotten it up higher and gotten away from it, right? Now you're not blocking.
But you've also got you also have your coax loss, so
Right.
consider that too.
X510 on a tripod.
Well, and then if you go to a place where you can't string up a J-pole, right?
Yeah.
This is back to now, something on your HT is a hell of a lot better. So
Yeah. No, for a radio mounted antenna, the best performance I've ever been able to get is out of one of those half wave antennas. So They do incredibly well. That's what that MFJ is. There's also a smiley antenna version. That's what this one is in my hand. It's got a spring-loaded base, which is kind of nice.
Oh, cool.
So it's flexible.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one.
And they're, I think, 33 bucks, and you can buy whatever. Yeah,
So,
33.
so Adam, I got a question for you. How
Yeah.
do you feel about like I've seen people put like counterpoises off of their HTs, you know, like hooking up a wire and connecting it here and actually running, you know, it's almost like a dipole at that point too. Now I know these things are kind of built for your body to be counterpoised, but I've seen people talk about it, and I've messed around with some before. You know, I always figure where I'm at in my house, it's really going to depend. Like when I'm listening to, like, say the 33, just one of the stations out here. Sometimes I've noticed, I've tried messing with it, and I feel like I want to feel like the thing works better, but yeah, like Brian's saying here, like a foxtail or something like that. How do you feel about running like a counterpoise or something like that? Do you find them to be efficient? Do you think that this is something that's even worth somebody's time to give it a shot with?
It depends on the antenna. Generally speaking, most HT antennas are based on a quarter wavelength design, and a quarter wavelength antenna performs better with a better ground plane. So if you give it a counterpoise, if you give it a better ground plane than just the small chassis of the HT, it'll probably perform a bit better. But try it. You know, certain antennas may be built and tuned to work well just on the HT held in your hand without a counterpoise, and the counterpoise may throw off the matching network and the setup for that antenna. So generally, yes, it will improve it. Try it out and compare and see what happens with kind of a constant signal from maybe a moderate strength station or repeater. Take it off, add it back on, and see how it affects the received signal performance, and that should be kind of a similar impact to your transmit performance.
Bye,
Now,
Kellen.
see you later, Kellen. Now, that antenna link that you sent for MFJ, there's 3 different antennas there. Is it just the one that's circled?
Yeah, it is. They're lazy.
Cheesy,
and took one picture. It's MFJ.
We're gonna save 3 seconds by just taking one picture, and then we'll circle the antennas that we're selling on each link.
and by saving 3 seconds, you mean take an extra like 10 seconds to
circle
go
them?
in there and actually circle the thing.
We're gonna do this.
Hey,
It'll
so-
save 0 time, but
I think a buddy of mine, I sent him the link. He's not a ham. I sent it to a couple of people who are interested. I think he just went to our website and is playing around with one of the web SDRs and is catching interest. Even more
Very cool.
interest than before. He just sent me a screenshot showing me that he's messing around with it. One
Excellent.
of the web SDRs.
Well, that's the trick to anything, right? Like, is find the gateway in. Like, I know I've been
Oh, yeah.
playing with GRMS with some family, because I'm like, that you can use this under my license, and they're like, wow, this is way better. I'm like, yes, this is way better than just FRS. And it's like that. Now, if you had ham, now we could really start talking.
There's a I was just watching a video on it from oh god, what's his name? I'm gonna remember his call sign at like the worst time, but he made a video regarding these Retivus 900 simplex unlicensed radios. The only drawback to them is A, they're 900, but B is that spectrum is where you find, I don't know, remote controlled cars, some of the newer ones, remote controlled cars, Wi-Fi stuff or whatever. I don't know. There's just anything that operates on 900, like medical devices. But it's pretty quiet because it's commercial. It's unlicensed commercial, but you can use it for family use and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. And I've put them in my scan list on my, on my portable here, and probably why I didn't hear anything. There was a few people actually in my area, non-commercial, like families, literally going out riding on their bikes, using it, because on here I obviously scan 9275 and a couple of other repeaters. 9275 is the calling frequency, but it's fairly active. It's kind of like a better ish FRS, if you will, because there's less people than there is on FRS. Besides, most of the time on FRS, someone's listening.
What frequency ranges are they?
They're on 900.
Okay.
I would have to go look at it, but it's an allocated area for unlicensed medical and electronic equipment. So the thing is about it, unlike FRS, you flick it on and yeah, maybe one of your lamps in your house will be like, making a weird buzzing noise on 462 or whatever. On 900, you might be quiet here, but you might go drive by, let's say, McDonald's or a Walgreens, and your radio's just going, and you're gonna have to change channels. And it's gonna be like that loud for a few blocks type of thing. So it's helpful. They're only 1 watt transmit power. And yeah, you could technically actually put them in and talk on a Motorola with 3 watts transmit power. Because I don't think it's as heavily like restricted like FRS is about the antennas and stuff like that. But it's still a very good option, as like with my experience, GMRS and FRS, especially with like scouts and at scout events, all the channels are full. All the channels are full. You maybe have 1 or 2 hams that know about MERS and have gotten their family to go on MERS or their people in their troop to go on MERS, but no one's on 900, and it's somewhat effective up there because of all the trees and stuff like that, but distance-wise it's not the best, but it's still pretty good. If you just look up 900 megahertz unlicensed radio, I'm sure you'll find it.
It's what a ton of businesses uses, even in the moto world. I remember the camp I used to work at, that's exactly what we were, was unlicensed 900, and you could cover most of our 200 acres with it. And you're absolutely right. The trick is GRMS, while it's great, with the FRS stuff being kind of wedged in there, it starts to be a little weird. I mean, I love running a little bit of extra power and the extra antennas, but you do get those incidents where you're like, oh man, somebody else is on here. But nonetheless, it's the concept of radio, I think, that starts to make people realize, hey, the cell phone thing doesn't work everywhere, but these radios in a lot of different scenarios work really well. It's not necessarily about long range as much as it is the proper proximity with the people that you're around and with, and that's truly the power of this. And again, it's the gateway drug. It's the, oh wait, what can I do with this?
I was talking
gateway
to
drug.
I was talking to Mike yesterday, and he was talking about some guys out in Arkansas who are linking GMRS out there with All-Star. They're using All-Star, and they're just not registering their nodes, running these 1999 nodes, these unregistered nodes.
Isn't that illegal? I think technically you're not allowed to run digital modes on GMRS.
Well,
I think you can't link. I thought
you
that was.
can't. No, I mean, there's linked repeaters out here. Look at the Mountaintop Boys out in Auburn, Vallejo. They've got 3 linked repeaters. The North Valley GMRS is linking repeaters all the way from Gold Rush or something. They've got like 6 of them or so linked repeaters, as far as I understand. As long as you're not, registering your All-Star nodes with All-Star, I'm kind of wondering what the legality of it is, but I mean, these sort of things are happening if they're private networks, they're private networks, and they're all simplex ones. I mean, it's like this, man. I mean, this is a dedicated GMRS radio for me. This is an old 3750 Kenwood, 4-watter. I know this is not necessarily legal. It's Part 92 compliant, but it's got and it's all buttonized and everything too, but it's got a removable antenna. So,
so that's the GRMS. You're actually legal with removable antenna. It's that it's not supposed to be programmable from the front faceplate. So buttons aren't an issue. It's that you shouldn't have a keypad, like a full legit keypad, to be able to jump between stuff.
I love this thing. I could like smash this thing on the ground and I'll pick it back up and
beat a tent post in with it.
But there's a bunch of weird things about GRMS there, though, right? Like it's supposed to be Part 95 compliant, but there's so many things that
or Part 95,
whichever it is.
Part 95, whatever the compliance is, it's got that part compliance.
But like, there's so many things that aren't, and you kind of go, well, wait, all the GMRS repeaters don't have that compliance. Like, it's one of
Yeah,
those weird,
that's
like, what we have bizarre rules, but at the end of the day, I think it's back to the not the letter of the law, but the concept behind it. Are you doing something ill will, ill intended, or are you doing something that's kind of in line with what the concept is, right?
The
Like, that's
essence
really
of
the point.
law.
Right.
Is that
you
what
know?
that is? It's not
The
the letter of the law,
spirit
but
of
the,
Yeah, now I'm
the
feeling like I'm
spirit.
at
Yes,
work,
the
so we need to
spirit.
stop this.
We're operating within the spirit of the law.
Um,
Hey, I had
Adam,
real
oh.
quick. Did anybody see the thing on Discord that Mike BBQ posted about the antenna that he used, the extendable whips that he ordered, and then
Oh,
he
yeah,
used
yeah, I
his
saw
tent
that.
pole, right, or his trekking pole. So he just made a couple of little attachments and put some knurled press-in female adapters, and then used male posted extendable telescopic whips, and then just extended them as far as he needed in succession to create a little Yagi. And I thought that was a pretty cool concept. Have you ever,
I was thinking it's
anybody
great for a
here
dipole
tried to
too.
mess with something like that?
I've actually well, I broke one of my whips. I was trying to make a little dipole, like a something for the outside of my house. I think I took some rabbit ears, TV antenna rabbit ears apart, and took those whips specifically off, and I was fashioning a dipole, and then I broke one of them and I started soldering it, and then I just got angry at myself and threw it all away, dude. But I mean, it was definitely I was on that track, he's just adding, more. I think it was a great idea, especially how small he could pack that thing down. I mean, I love my little arrow antenna too. That thing is awesome, but to be able to build one yourself is still super key. Yeah, exactly. Something like that, man. Hey, that's perfect. There's your
33
portable
Yeah,
dipole
it's
right
on
there,
track.
dude.
it's pretty light. So it's a BNC connector, a little well, they're finally loaded the the full resolution image, but a couple of folding 19-inch whips, 19.5-inch whips, whatever they are, they extend out to be a 2-meter dipole, just kind of like that. It's basically the Pac-10 Trek mount, but a little smaller, lighter, and doesn't use HT antennas. It just uses a couple telescopic whips I had laying
So
around.
That's for 2 meter?
Basically what
That's dope, man.
Yeah,
Are you selling that, Adam?
No, I built it, and then I was like, I'm never going to use this thing. I've got a 3-element Yagi right here that weighs 5.5 ounces.
Well, so that's what this is basically what BBQ did, but he took and
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, and then he just has
Yeah.
his reflector and driving elements that go on his trekking pole.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
This sits on a trekking pole, on the end of it, just to kind of hold it up. That was the intent behind that little piece of PVC that I zip tied on there.
But then your
You know,
HT
top-notch-
is
oh, battery build.
horizontally polarized, right?
Yes, the intent of this was to create a horizontal dipole, or what the other option is to point the radiating element up and the other one horizontal, and just make it basically a vertical. So
I tagged you in it, Adam, in our Discord. If you take a look, you should have a tag.
cool.
You can see what he
Okay.
did.
So is that a PCB
Adam-
board?
it is.
Nice.
It's part of a failed experiment. I don't know if I have any pictures of that, but one of the antennas I talked about was I'll stop sharing here. Was an extended double ZEP, and an extended double ZEP is it's kind of like a dipole, but it uses 5/8 wavelength elements instead of quarter wavelength elements, so it's big. But because it uses 5/8 wavelength elements, you have to have some sort of a matching network, and the sort of common way to match it is to use about 1/8 electrical wavelength of open wire feed line, like 450 ohm or 300 ohm twin lead. And I thought, well, what if I made a PCB that is basically just two strips, open wire feed line, but on a PCB, and shape that so it also functions as sort of a winder to wrap the wire around and the coax around to store the thing. So I built it and it just didn't match properly. I think it has to do with the velocity factor of the PC board, spacing of the traces and stuff like that. So at some point I'll get back to that experiment and figure out how to make it work. But my initial attempts were not successful, and that was one of the the PCBs that had the perfect holes for that BNC mount, and then you can see those traces on the end, which I just cut the thing off and ground the corners off, and then drilled some holes and used it for another purpose.
But that's the
Pretty
beauty
cool.
of the hobby, right? It's just to experiment. You know,
That's
what
right.
that's what I think is so much. That's where I think we lose some people, right? There's the group of people who want, hey, how do I plug and play and my radio works long range? And that's awesome. Totally. But then there's this playing factor. And I think that's a whole nother, you know, and there's bits and pieces for everybody. So many places to play.
Oh, I love it, man. I love trying to make it, you know, I mean, I'm not going to bitch and whine about my antennas that I bought, but building them, you know, I built a couple ground plane antennas, 70 centimeter antennas, or I was running a APRS server off of a 2 meter antenna that it was great. The thing came down in the rain like 2 or 3 times, a little weld here, a little, you know, a little solder there, and that thing's running again, you know, on a PVC stick on the side of my house. Worked awesome.
Nice.
You know, Jim's had some Frankenstein antennas over at his house as well. And I know we saw some homemade tower that he built at one point too, right?
Yeah, I built that that 2 meter Yagi with the folded dipole for the radiated element, and stuck it on a 16-foot tall 2x4. Built a little 3-point movable tower and moved it around my front yard and turned it at different repeaters. I got all the way down to Modesto with it, and you know, very unscientific. In fact, the beam was half of a 2x4, and I drilled holes and stuck the aluminum rods through. And I got the aluminum rods or the tubing from the scrap yard over in Oakley. I think I spent maybe, well, before lumber went off the charts, this was about 3 years ago. Maybe I spent 15-20 bucks on all the materials for it, and I still have it. It's sitting in the side yard. But yeah, that was a blast. I had a good time with that one.
I made this. I printed this one. So this is just a match, like a hairpin match almost, but it's 75 ohm coax to make a 28 ohm match, and then it's just 3D printed parts on a aluminum shaft. And the whole thing is like, this is the rest of it, and it all just kind of pieces together. The problem is it's clunky. Like, I haven't even used it. I made it and I tested it out, but I want something. I keep going smaller and smaller, like the smallest stuff I can get. So like, I oftentimes go when I go do a soda, I go to the roll up J pull, and it's just because it's so compact. It's like in my hand. And I have nothing to carry, but I might test one of these MFJs out just to see, because it looks like it isn't going to take up any more space than a roll up J pull with the coax would, you know.
Hey, does anybody have any pictures from field day, from the Vaca Valley Radio Close field day? That Delta pole, or that Delta loop that Kellen made?
Yeah, I would have to.
That's the exact opposite of small.
Completely like out here.
Yeah.
That's the 16-foot 5-element 6-meter beam. That's the whole thing with the 12-foot mast weighs about 7 pounds. I've got a similar. So your match is, I use the same type of match, couple parallel pieces of 75 ohm to get 35 ohm, and then a quarter electrical wavelength gives you, you know, a match from 50 to 25 ohms or 28-ish ohms. So I use the same type of matching network on that 6-meter Yagi. Yeah. I have a very similar 2-meter Yagi that's partially built. That's, I think, an 8 or 9 foot boom with 6 elements. So I need to finish up the matching network on that one.
That was a good video.
But yeah, this thing's
good video, Adam, on the 6-meter beam. I saw that. I watched that one. I really like that.
Yeah, that thing works great, man. I'm really pleased with the performance.
Yep.
But can you really take it to a mountaintop and like expect to try to set that up in those winds?
Have you seen what Adam's taken to mountaintops?
I'm just saying, like
you-
the average
like-
person, right? Like and that's the other flip side of this, right? Like there's the what are you so driven that like I'm going to make this work
Yeah.
versus right like the guy who's like I'm going to buy an antenna that didn't work. Let me go buy, like
No,
there's
like
different parts.
so a mountaintop for Adam is different than most people. Like you should see what video was it? I think it was one of the recent videos that he was like rock climbing. It was nuts. What was that one?
Oh, yeah.
When
you
you
went
were
with
doing
two other folks up there, and you
were
went
doing
through
an
that
emergency
gully.
exercise.
Yeah, your star exercise that you guys were climbing. I forget.
Yeah.
That was-
Laurel Mountain. It's up behind Convict Lake in the Mammoth area. So if you've ever been to Mammoth and went to Convict Lake, it's that beautiful mountain that's the backdrop for the lake, and there's a route that goes straight up the face of that thing. It's pretty cool.
Isn't that like all shale or slate or something like that? Like that looks like it would be a nightmare to climb. I've been to Convict. It's a beautiful.
The geology is, the rock that's made of is called wollastonite, and wollastonite is it's actually it's kind of chossy. It's not super strong or stable rock, but it has ridiculous friction, so it's super sticky, and then because it's in that gully, the water that ends up running down it actually makes it pretty clean, so it washes away all the loose stuff, and you end up with a pretty solid rock surface to climb on that your shoes just really stick to. So it's actually not bad. That's the rock, or the face of the thing. So you kind of just go up that main gully up the middle, and then at the big red band in the middle, you cut left a little bit.
We're not
and
seeing it.
stay in the wider gully. What?
Yeah, we're not seeing it.
Probably my slow.
I got a
internet.
black screen. Oh, there we
There
go.
it
Wah, wah.
There we go.
Wait for it.
That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's cool.
yeah, that was a good one too.
Well, cool guys. I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up. I'm ready to go to bed. I don't know about you all, but yeah, that was awesome, and I appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for coming out. You're welcome out here anytime. And up next
Sounds
week,
good.
I think we've got the tech prepper,
Got
right?
Gaston, tech
Yeah.
prepper
Oh,
coming
cool.
on.
So that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So those of you on YouTube, if you want to save that in your memory banks, we'll post a little bit more info on that as the week progresses. And then yeah, so it should be fun. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It was awesome. Big thanks to Adam, and thanks Connor for hooking up with Adam and recommending him come out here. And I hope everybody has a good night. Any final words?
Ham
Yeah,
harder.
hey,
Ham harder.
hey, great picture for the 2 meter crew this week, Adam. That turtleneck picture you got there.
He
Oh,
posted
yes.
that. He's like, if you need a great picture of me, well, it's a picture.
My sister took that picture of me at a family reunion because if I actually shave the beard, which I haven't done in a long time, you would notice that I have like an inordinately long neck, and I'm like 5'9", but if I had a normal length neck, I'd probably be like 5'7". So so we were joking around, and I'm just like sticking my neck out, and she takes this picture of me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's fantastic.
That's super funny. So we're just
Hey,
gonna
I-
post that on all the thumbnails now. Like even when you're not
Excellent.
coming, we're just gonna make that the slogan
It's
picture.
just Adam.
Hey, I
2
wanted
meter
to-
neck
Just Adam.
crew. Yep,
I
yep.
also wanted to say happy birthday to you, Bert. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy
Well,
birthday,
man,
Bert.
Thank you very much.
You officially old.
Nice.
And I wanted to say to Connor just got his Eagle Scout too, which is no
Yep.
easy task. So, dude,
Welcome to the
congratulations
club, buddy.
on that, man.
Welcome.
Very cool, dude.
Super
And
awesome
then
stuff
Jim
happening.
like is shaved like 5 pounds off of his face, man.
Yeah.
and 10 years. You forgot the other part.
Yeah, no, dude, you're looking smooth and good, dude. Is that for the anniversary? Is that for the anniversary, dude?
Yeah. 35 years of wedded bliss.
Congratulations, brother.
You're chroma
Congratulations,
keyed. She's right behind you, isn't she? She's got like a.
Yeah, she's right there off screen. You better say it right, Jim.
All right,
Shoe
you
comes
guys.
flying.
Everybody out on YouTube, I hope you guys all have a good night. We'll say 7-3. See everyone next week.
Bye-bye.